Chapter 7. Existentialism and Relationships. 7.1. Interpersonal Relationships in Existentialism. Existentialism, as a philosophy, places a significant emphasis on the individual's experience as the starting point for understanding human existence. Amidst this focus on personal agency and authenticity, the nature of interpersonal relationships becomes a topic of profound interest and complexity. This section explores how existentialist thought interprets and shapes our view of relationships with others. One fundamental aspect of existentialism is the concept of the other. This refers to the realization that each individual is a separate consciousness with their own unique perspective on the world. Existentialists like Jean-Paul Sartre contend that the very presence of the other is what gives rise to an individual's sense of self. This interplay between self and other is central to understanding relationships from an existential perspective. It highlights the importance of acknowledging the independent existence and freedom of the people we engage with. Sartre introduces the idea of the look to elucidate the relationship dynamics between individuals. When someone looks at another person, they objectify them, turning them into an object within their world. This act diminishes the other person's subjectivity and freedom, enforcing a power dynamic where one person becomes the subject and the other becomes the object. Within interpersonal relationships, this has significant implications. It can lead to conflict as individuals strive to retain their freedom against the objectifying gaze of others. Furthermore, existentialist thought posits that individuals are what they are, not what they are, meaning they are constantly in the process of becoming and are defined by their possibilities rather than their current state. This concept is significant when considering relationships, as it suggests that each person in a relationship has the potential to change. It urges individuals within relationships to embrace this fluidity and support the growth and transformation of one another, rather than imposing rigid expectations based on who they currently are. While relationships involve two or more individuals, each with their own freedom, existentialists argue that these freedoms do not have to cancel each other out. Instead, they advocate for a form of coexistence known as being for others, a way of relating to others that respects their freedom and subjectivity. This involves practicing empathy, trying to understand the world from another person's perspective, and fostering a relational environment where individuals can freely express their authentic selves. The existential commitment to authenticity profoundly affects interpersonal relationships. Authenticity implies that individuals should not conform to roles or expectations imposed by society, family, or peers. In the context of relationships, this means that individuals should not simply play the roles of, for example, spouse, parent, or friend, but should be present in these relationships as their genuine selves. This deep connection to authenticity may at times create tension, as being true to oneself can occasionally be at odds with the needs or desires of the relationship. Love, as interpreted by existentialists, is often tied to the concept of freedom. Existentialist thinkers like Sartre believe that traditional notions of love can be problematic if they lead a person to possess or be possessed by another, thus negating both individuals' freedom. Authentic love from an existential view is therefore not about ownership or control, but about supporting and valuing the other person's freedom, which mirrors one's own desire for freedom. When considering the concept of choice in relationships, existentialism underscores its significance. Every action, reaction, and interaction within a relationship is a result of choice, even if those choices are made within certain constraints. This emphasis on choice in existential thought imbues relationships with a sense of personal responsibility and intentionality, as each individual is seen as responsible for the relationship's nature and course. Existentialism also grapples with the inherent tension between the desire for connection with others and the realization of one's isolation. Humanity's confrontation with the fundamental isolation experienced in existence leads to a deeper appreciation of genuine connections when they are formed. Relationships offer a respite from this isolation, providing meaningful engagement that can affirm one's existence and contribute to a sense of purpose and shared reality. Lastly, The role of communication in existential relationships cannot be overstated. Existentialism posits that clear, honest, and open communication is crucial for sustaining authentic relationships. This involves expressing one's thoughts, feelings, and desires transparently, as well as being receptive to the other person's communication. Through such communication, individuals can overcome misunderstandings, build trust, and foster deeper connections that align with the values of authenticity and freedom, central to existentialism. Existentialism offers a nuanced framework for understanding interpersonal relationships. It invites a profound appreciation for the individual freedoms and choices that underpin these connections, while advocating for a relational dynamic that is rooted in authenticity, empathy, and mutual respect for each other's growth and subjectivity. This existentialist approach presents a compelling perspective on how to navigate the complexities of human relationships in a manner that supports the individual's quest for meaning and self-realization within the communal fabric of existence. 7.2. Love and Existentialism. The intersection of love and existentialism presents a complex landscape where individual freedom, personal responsibility, and the essence of human relations intertwine. Love in an existential context does not adhere to traditional romantic ideals, which often involve a sense of completion or fulfillment found in another person. Instead, existentialists propose that love is an act of freedom, where two individuals acknowledge each other as separate entities with their own unique projects and experiences. In this view, love is an ongoing choice rather than a static state, a dynamic and conscious engagement between individuals who choose to be with each other while maintaining their individuality. The notion of authenticity plays a critical role in existentialism, particularly as it pertains to love. Love, from an existential perspective, is authentic when it recognizes and respects the individuality of the other. This implies a rejection of possessiveness and the idea that one person can own or fully know another. Each person brings their own subjective experience to the relationship, and true love must not only accommodate but embrace this subjectivity. Authentic love, therefore, involves a recognition of the other's freedom and a continuous effort to understand their unique perspective. For existentialists, the concept of bad faith applies to love as it does to other aspects of existence. Engaging in bad faith in a relationship means denying the freedom and subjectivity of either oneself or the other person, leading to inauthentic expressions of love. In a relationship characterized by bad faith, individuals may conform to societal expectations or personal illusions about what a relationship should be, rather than engaging with the true nature of themselves or their partner. When individuals in a relationship refuse to acknowledge their own or each other's freedom, the relationship fails to be genuine. Jean-Paul Sartre, a prominent existentialist thinker, believed that love could often become a project to possess the other, which he saw as inherently contradictory to the principles of freedom, central to existentialism. According to Sartre, trying to possess the other in love can lead to conflict, as it clashes with our inherent desire for freedom. The challenge, then, for existentialist love is to avoid the temptation to reduce the other to an object or a means to fulfill our own needs. Instead, Sartre advocates for a love that is based on mutual recognition of each other's autonomy. Simone de Beauvoir, another influential existentialist, offers a view of love that transcends the notion of the self and the other as opposing forces. De Beauvoir suggests that genuine love involves sharing one's existence with the other, without sacrificing freedom or demanding the other's submission. This form of love involves an active commitment to the growth and freedom of the other person. For de Beauvoir, love is not about domination or being dominated, but about existing together in a partnership where both parties are free and equal. However, the question arises as to whether existentialism, with its emphasis on individual freedom and self-creation, can accommodate the interdependence inherent in a loving relationship. The answer lies in the balance between the two. While existentialism stresses the importance of individual authenticity, it does not preclude connections with others. Instead, it encourages an interdependence that is freely chosen and constantly renegotiated, where both individuals engage with the relationship while remaining true to their own values and pursuits. The negotiation of space within the relationship is key to an existential understanding of love. Each partner must be allowed the space to pursue their own interests, goals, and personal projects without fear of encroachment by the other. This requires a continual dialogue and mutual understanding, where both partners are engaged in an ongoing conversation about their individual and shared needs. It is in this space that the couple can grow both separately and together, constantly creating and recreating the terms of their relationship as they evolve as individuals. Communication, then, is a fundamental component of love in existentialism. Authentic dialogue allows individuals to express their thoughts and feelings without resorting to manipulation or deceit, which are antithetical to existential thought. Love thrives when communication is open, honest, and reflective of each person's individual reality. Such communication must not be aimed at shaping the other into one's own image, but should respect the other's freedom and unique viewpoint. The commitment in existentialist love is not to be mistaken for an unchanging contract or a sacrifice of personal freedom. Rather, it is an ongoing choice to create a shared world with the other, a world that respects individual differences while fostering a mutual journey. Commitment in this sense is viewed as an act of courage, as it involves consistently choosing to confront the uncertainties and challenges of sharing one's life with another person. The existentialist ideal of commitment firmly rejects passive contentment or comfort in favor of a more dynamic and active engagement with the complexities of a shared existence. Finally, existentialism recognizes that the experience of love, with all its depth and complexity, is integral to the human condition. Love can provide a profound sense of connection and a powerful motivation for individual and shared endeavors. It is, however, not seen as a solution to the fundamental existential concerns of meaning, isolation, and mortality. Rather, love is an avenue through which individuals can confront these aspects of existence together, enriching their lives with shared understanding and purpose, while maintaining the freedom essential to existential thought. The existential perspective on love thus provides a framework for relationships that is both deeply personal and philosophically robust, offering a compelling approach to one of life's most potent experiences. Section 7.3 Friendship and Existential Choice. The concept of friendship has long been regarded as an essential aspect of human life. In existentialist philosophy, the nature of friendships is intricately linked to the concept of choice and the authentic existence of the individual. Existentialist thinkers propose that true friendship transcends mere social utility or pleasure, demanding a deeper engagement with the other's being. Friends, from an existential perspective, provide a unique mirror that reflects our own selves back to us, not just affirming who we are but also challenging us to grow and confront our own existence. The act of choosing to establish a friendship is inherently existential. It involves recognizing the other as an independent consciousness with their own freedoms and existential burdens. Through this recognition, friendship becomes a deliberate intertwining of two separate life narratives. This creates a space where individuals can confront their own ideas and values, precisely because a friend is an other who chooses to value us, yet is not obligated to affirm our perspectives. Therefore, friendship founded on existential choice demands an encounter with genuine difference and requires a constant renegotiation of understanding. An existentialist acknowledges that people are fundamentally alone in their subjective experiences. However, existentialist thought emphasizes that this solitude does not denote a cold isolation, but rather underscores the significance of the connections we choose to forge. Friendship, in this light, becomes an act of reaching out across the subjective divide to attempt to share our isolated existences. The effort to communicate, empathize, and support within a friendship is a reflection of our yearning for connection amid our inherent aloneness. It also reinforces our capacity to exercise freedom through our choices in who we invite into our personal subjective worlds. Existential choice is also about taking responsibility for the friendships one cultivates. It requires an active participation in the relationship, rather than a passive enjoyment of another's company. Authentic friendship involves mutual growth and challenge, as existentialist thinkers argue that we shape and are shaped by those we choose to associate with. Therefore, selecting friends is not to be taken lightly, as each relationship becomes a part of the existential project of crafting one's identity. The dynamic of giving and receiving advice, feedback, and shared experiences within friendship serves as a crucial arena for self-exploration and self-creation. Friendships, from an existentialist view, can be a refuge from the crowd, wherein individuals find solace from the massification of society. Unlike relationships formed out of convenience or those that replicate societal expectations, existential friendships resist the pressure to conform. They nourish authenticity and individuality. Such friendships encourage us to embrace our freedom and make conscientious choices rather than succumbing to the passive roles imposed by society. This sanctuary from social conformity allows for the flourishing of individual existential projects within the safety of mutual understanding and respect. However, true existential friendships are rare and demanding. They require a recognition and acceptance of the other person's freedom and subjectivity. The existential friend is someone who does not impose their will upon us, but instead acknowledges our capacity to forge our own path. It is this recognition and respect for one another's autonomous selfhood that form the core of existential companionship. As friends, we must be cognizant of not only our own existential journeys, but also the journey of our companion, who is equally free and burdened with choice. Friendship, in this philosophical framework, is more than just a social connection. It is a bond that impacts our existential being. Our friends can either support or impede our journey towards authenticity. They can help us to confront our anxieties, to embrace our freedom, and to face our responsibilities, or they can contribute to our escapism and self-deception. As such, selecting who we let close to us becomes an ethical matter. Friends should ideally be chosen based on how well they align with our pursuit of an authentic existence, and how they contribute to our understanding of ourselves and our world. While some critics of existentialism might argue that this philosophy promotes a form of selfish individualism, in the context of friendships, it fosters a profound sense of solidarity and mutual support. Through friendships, we find our own subjective experiences affirmed and expanded. Friends provide the challenge and support necessary for individuals to grapple with existential concerns such as meaning, authenticity, and mortality. Friendships act as a catalyst for existential deliberation and realization, making them essential for not just personal fulfillment, but also for philosophical inquiry. The inherent freedom in existential choice also extends to the freedom to end a friendship. Relationships that once contributed to one's existential growth can become stagnant or even detrimental. Knowing when to let go is as much a part of the existential choice as is the decision to cultivate a friendship. It is through this continuum of forming and potentially dissolving friendships that individuals continually redefine their relational boundaries, their self-concepts, and their existential trajectories. Each friendship holds the potential to shape the contours of our existence. Our choice in maintaining or ending such relations is a testament to our living authentically. Existentialism provides a framework for understanding friendship that is deeply intertwined with the concept of personal choice and authenticity. Friendships based on existentialist principles are ones that encourage individuality, foster mutual understanding, and acknowledge the freedom inherent in every human being. Such friendships are often challenging, demanding an ongoing commitment to the relational dynamics. Yet they hold the remarkable potential to enhance our understanding of our own existence and provide a context within which we can courageously face life's myriad choices. As such, existentialism not only promotes an illuminative viewpoint on the nature of friendship, but also offers a profound appreciation for the role that such connections play in the grander scheme of human existence. 7.4 The Other and the Self. As we delve into existentialism and its implications for understanding relationships, it is crucial to explore the concept of the other and how it contrasts and complements the self. The self can be thought of as one's own being in its most intimate sense, as experienced from the inside, while the other represents external beings with whom the self interacts. Jean-Paul Sartre, a prominent existentialist philosopher, argued that the existence of the other is a fundamental aspect of one's own self-awareness. Indeed, it is through encountering the other that the self becomes fully aware of itself as a distinct entity. Sartre saw the other as an essential component in the constitution of one's self-identity. When we juxtapose ourselves with someone else, we become acutely aware of our own subjectivity and the personal freedoms and limitations that it entails. Recognizing another conscious being causes the self to realize the contrast between the subjectivity within and the objectivity without. This encounter challenges the solitary nature of self-reflection by introducing another center of perspective, a perspective that holds the capacity to see us as an object in the world. Throughout Sartre's work, especially in Being and Nothingness, he explores the concept of self-awareness through the gaze of the other. In this light, the other serves as a mirror reflecting back an image of the self. This mirrored image is imbued with attributes and judgments that arise from the other's subjectivity. Consequently, this process might lead to feelings of being defined, limited, or even threatened by how the other perceives us. It is this intersubjective tension that highlights human relationships as fundamental to the development and understanding of one's own self. Existentialists also emphasize the importance of authentic relationships. An authentic relationship is one where both individuals recognize each other's freedom and subjectivity. The recognition of the other's freedom is paramount as it acknowledges the unpredictability and autonomy of another person. Such acknowledgement steers the relationship away from objectification, where one would view and treat the other merely as an object or a means to an end, rather than as an independent subject with their own inherent value. At the same time, the recognition of the other's autonomy implies a risk. When we engage with the other, we present ourselves to be perceived and potentially judged. This exposure can create a sense of vulnerability for the self, as the other holds the power to negate our self-perception or to affirm it. A fundamental aspect of existentialist thought is that individuals are not merely passive receivers of external influences, but are capable of asserting their own existence by choosing how to interpret and respond to the other's perception. The concept of bad faith, as described by Sartre, is particularly relevant when considering interactions between the self and the other. Bad faith occurs when an individual denies their own freedom and responsibility, often to escape the anxiety that comes with genuine self-awareness. In relationships, this manifests as blaming the other for one's own issues, or in shaping oneself based on the other's view, rather than taking responsibility for one's own existence. In such relationships, neither party fully acknowledges their own or the other's freedom, leading to inauthenticity and a lack of genuine connection. Conversely, when the self and the other engage in mutual recognition of each other as free, independent subjects, both parties may find themselves in genuine dialogue. This dialogue provides a medium through which individuals can share their subjectivities without the intent of imposing them upon one another. Martin Buber's philosophy distinguishes two primary modes of existence, I-thou and I-it. An I-thou relationship is characterized by an open and mutual engagement between subjects, as opposed to I-it relationships where one treats the other as an object, thereby depersonalizing the interaction. Much of existentialist thought is preoccupied with the barriers to genuine relationships. For instance, self-deception and the unwillingness to face one's own freedom can inhibit the formation of authentic connections with others. Likewise, fear of vulnerability or judgment by the other can lead individuals to remain closed off and isolated. To address these issues, existentialists argue that it is paramount for individuals to embrace their own freedom and the inherent uncertainties of shared experiences in order to foster meaningful relationships. The dynamics between the self and the other carry significant ethical considerations within existentialism. The ethical responsibility towards the other derives from acknowledging their subjectivity and freedom. Emmanuel Levinas notably argued that the other makes an ethical demand on the self. This demand is the basis for our moral obligations and is realized in the face-to-face encounter. It is not a matter of imposing or accepting objective moral laws, but responding to the unique situation and needs of the other. As part of understanding relationships in an existentialist framework, it becomes evident that the true depth of a relationship is not determined by the quantity of interactions or the duration of acquaintance. Instead, it is the quality of recognition and engagement with the uniqueness and freedom of the other that deepens the relational connection. Existentialism posits that each individual must continuously strive for authenticity in relationships by facing the inevitable vulnerabilities and embracing the fluid nature of the self's interaction with the other. Existentialism delineates a complex but profoundly human landscape of how the self relates to the other. This paradigm entails the assertion of one's own freedom and the recognition of the autonomy of the other. Relationships grounded in existentialist thought promote authenticity, mutual respect, and ethical responsibility. Such an understanding of relationships does not negate the challenges and fears associated with encountering the other. Rather, it insists on the pursuit of genuine connections as a vital part of the human experience. 7.5 Existentialism in Family Dynamics. Family dynamics are the patterns of interactions among family members that shape their relationships and the family's functioning as a unit. Viewed through an existential lens, these dynamics gain a distinct perspective whereby individual autonomy, the search for meaning, and the tension between freedom and responsibility become especially pertinent. Existentialism, as a philosophy, underscores the significance of personal choice and the inherent meaning individuals assign to their experiences. This chapter explores how existential themes manifest within the nuanced context of family relationships. One of the fundamental aspects of existential thought is the stress on the individual's freedom to choose and the accompanying responsibility for those choices. In a family setting, this focus on personal freedom often meets with the reality of interconnectedness. Family members are bound by relational ties, and while each person may pursue individual pathways, choices made frequently reverberate across the family system. For example, a parent's career decisions not only affect their own sense of purpose, but can determine the family's socioeconomic status, possibly altering the children's educational opportunities and shaping the family's collective identity. At the heart of existentialism is the idea that individuals must create their own essence through actions, a belief that getting entangled in family roles could both challenge and reinforce. Roles within a family, such as those of a parent, spouse, or sibling, often come with predefined expectations. While fulfilling these roles, family members might struggle to maintain their individuality and might question their personal authenticity. Engaging authentically with their roles allows family members to define themselves not by societal labels, but by pursuing meaningful connections and growing interpersonally within the boundaries of these roles. The existential theme of isolation can also become salient in family dynamics. Despite the closeness that family bonds typically suggest, individual members may encounter profound feelings of isolation due to the subjective nature of existence. Each person experiences reality from a unique vantage point, an idea accentuated in existentialist philosophy. This understanding might lead to a paradox where one can feel alone even when surrounded by family. Acknowledging this aspect can inspire family members to delve deeper into empathetic communication and develop a stronger emotional rapport, all in the effort to bridge the chasm that existential isolation can create. Death is a universal concern in existentialism, with the inevitability of mortality serving as a backdrop to human life. In the context of family, the awareness of death and the consequent desire to seek meaning may manifest through generative activities, those aimed at contributing to the well-being and growth of future generations. For parents, this might mean nurturing children, not only in a physical sense, but also in cultivating their potential to lead fulfilled lives. Here, the existential focus on death is tied to the legacy that family members hope to leave, the values, wisdom, and love they wish to impart. Existential freedom includes the freedom to define what constitutes a family. The traditional view of the family is often challenged by those who believe family ties need not be exclusively biological or legal, but can be based on the consciously chosen relationships of individuals seeking mutual understanding and validation. This redefinition can be understood as an existential act of creating one's own values and meanings within the context of relational living. Such an open approach to family structure supports varied forms of kinship and establishes the importance of intentional relational choices. The concept of authenticity, a central existential theme, is particularly relevant when considering the family as a locus of social development. Members of a family are encouraged to be genuine with one another, fostering an environment where individuals can express their true selves. However, the pressure to conform to family expectations can sometimes stifle personal authenticity, leading to resentment and alienation. The existential pursuit of an authentic life thus asks family members to strike a balance between alignment with family values and the expression of individuality. In family dynamics, the struggle for balance between freedom and responsibility can lead to conflict. Existentialists assert that individuals have a duty to live responsibly, a principle that gains complexity when transposed onto a family context. Each person may interpret their responsibilities differently, and negotiations are often necessary to reconcile individual desires with collective needs. How family members approach these negotiations can either reinforce a sense of shared purpose or excavate deeper rifts within the relational fabric. The existential anxiety that accompanies the recognition of one's freedom can also surface in family life. This anxiety is often observed in pivotal life decisions, such as career choices, marriage, or parenthood, where family influences can be both supportive and restrictive. In navigating these waters, family members are constantly balancing their own existential dread with an understanding of their impact on the rest of the family. Opening up about these anxieties can cultivate a compassionate family atmosphere, where support and autonomy are not mutually exclusive. Each family develops its own unique narrative, stitched together by shared experiences and the meanings derived from them. An existential perspective emphasizes that these narratives are not static. They are continuously shaped by the decisions and actions of family members. Narrative coherence can help members make sense of life's inherent unpredictability and their place within the family's unfolding story. Embracing such a narrative-focused approach aligns well with the existential theme of constructing one's meaningful journey amidst the absurdity of existence. Applying existentialist principles to understand family dynamics provides a rich tapestry of insights into how individuals navigate the complex relationships within their families. It underscores the unique responsibility each member bears in shaping not only their life, but the collective life of the family unit. It also highlights the ongoing struggles between freedom and responsibility, individuality and belonging, authenticity and role fulfillment. In doing so, the existentialist view fosters an opportunity for family members to consciously engage in their relationships, construct meaningful familial ties, and appreciate the profound personal growth that can emerge from these deeply human connections. 7.6 Sexuality and Existentialism. Sexuality is a fundamental aspect of human existence, and as such, it plays a significant role in existentialist philosophy. Existentialism, with its focus on individual freedom, personal responsibility, and subjective experience, offers a unique perspective on the matter of sexuality. It views sexuality not simply as a biological drive or a societal construct, but as an integral part of the human experience that is closely linked to identity, freedom, and authenticity. Firstly, sexuality in existentialism is understood as central to the individual's quest for self-definition. Our sexual desires and practices are among the most personal and private aspects of our lives, yet they are also shaped by the broader societal norms and values. In grappling with their sexuality, individuals confront their own desires in the light of societal expectations and restrictions. This confrontation can lead to either conformity to societal norms or the assertion of personal freedom and authenticity, making sexuality a battleground for existential choice and resistance. Moreover, sexual relationships challenge existentialists to consider issues of freedom within the context of intimacy with others. A key tenet of existentialism is that individuals are freely choosing beings, responsible for their own actions. In a sexual relationship, this autonomy can seem at odds with the connectedness and interdependence that intimacy requires. Existentialists argue that authentic relationships must strike a balance between respecting each other's freedom while cultivating genuine connections. This balance is delicate and requires constant negotiation, reflection, and mutual respect. The concept of bad faith, a central existentialist idea referring to self-deception or living inauthentically, is highly relevant to sexuality. Individuals may enter sexual relationships that conform to societal expectations rather than reflecting their true desires, thereby living in bad faith. These relationships often lack honesty and depth, as partners are not being true to themselves or to each other. Conversely, acknowledging and expressing one's sexuality authentically, even if it defies conventional norms, is seen as a form of existential courage. The role of choice in sexuality is an inescapable part of the human condition in existentialist thought. Humans are faced with the anxiety and responsibility that come with the freedom to choose their sexual partners, practices, and identities. Existentialists argue that such choices are essential expressions of our individuality. As we navigate through our sexual lives, every decision reflects and shapes who we are and who we are becoming. This places a heavy moral weight on sexual choices, making them deeply significant to our existential narratives. Existential authenticity is also a crucial consideration regarding sexuality. Being authentic means engaging with one's sexual identity, orientation, and preferences honestly and openly, without succumbing to external pressures or societal norms. Authenticity requires self-awareness and a willingness to confront and accept one's sexuality in all its complexity. For existentialists, living authentically in terms of sexuality means embracing one's desires as a true expression of self, even when doing so involves uncertainty and vulnerability. Another vital existentialist concern is the concept of otherness and how it relates to sexuality. Recognizing the other's distinctiveness is essential in any sexual relationship. Existential thinkers like Martin Buber and Jean-Paul Sartre have explored the idea that authentic relationships involve seeing the other not as an object to be used for one's gratification, but as a separate being with their own freedoms and subjectivity. This view encourages a form of sexual engagement that is respectful of the other's existence and individuality. The question of objectification within sexual relationships is one that existentialism takes seriously. To objectify another person is to deny their status as a subject, a being capable of free choice and personal agency. In sexual relationships, objectification can debase the intrinsic worth of the individual and is antithetical to the mutual recognition that existentialists consider paramount. Recognizing each partner as an autonomous free individual is essential for a sexual bond that aligns with existentialist values. Furthermore, existentialism contends with the temporality of sexuality. Human beings are temporal creatures, and our sexuality changes over our lifetimes. As such, existentialist thought on sexuality must account for the influence of time, how sexual desires and capacities evolve, how sexual identities can fluctuate, and how relationships themselves may be transient. This focus on the temporal nature of existence requires individuals to continuously reassess and reaffirm their sexual choices and relationships within the context of their unfolding life narratives. Finally, the recognition of shared humanity and vulnerability in sexual relationships is an important existentialist theme. By acknowledging our common vulnerabilities and desires, individuals can foster deeper connections and understanding. Sexuality in this sense becomes an arena for affirming our shared human condition, which includes our capacities for joy, suffering, pleasure, and pain. The acceptance of our shared vulnerability can help diminish the existential isolation that individuals often feel, offering a path towards solidarity and mutual affirmation. Sexuality is a deeply existential matter that encapsulates key themes such as freedom, choice, authenticity, otherness, temporality, and shared human vulnerability. For existentialists, how we approach and express our sexuality is a significant part of our personal narrative and a reflection of our individual stance toward our existence. As with all aspects of life, sexuality demands personal responsibility and courageous authenticity, especially in the face of societal pressures and norms. The understanding and navigation of our sexual lives are thus integral to the broader existential quest for meaning and self-realization. 7.7 Existentialism and Community. In examining existentialism's relationship with the concept of community, we encounter a complex interplay between the individual's search for meaning and the collective experience. Existentialism, a philosophical movement that emphasizes individual existence, freedom, and choice, suggests that individuals are free and responsible for their own development in a universe that is often indifferent to their existence. This focus on the individual might seem at first glance to be at odds with the idea of community, which relies on the collective shared experience. However, upon closer inspection, one finds that existentialism does not necessarily reject the notion of community, but rather frames it within the lens of individual authenticity and freedom. The community, in an existential sense, refers to the meaningful relationships and collective assemblies that individuals choose to engage with, based on shared values and the authentic desires of its participants. Existential thinkers propose that authentic communities are formed not from a mere aggregation of individuals, but from deliberate and purposeful associations where individual members are actively engaged in the creation of shared meaning. The individual's awareness of their interdependence with others within a community is central to this perspective. Existential community is not a given, but something that is constantly in the process of being made and remade through the actions and choices of its members. Jean-Paul Sartre, a prominent existentialist philosopher, brought light to the concept of seriality, which describes a collection of individuals who are collectively subjected to common conditions or external pressures without necessarily forming a cohesive group with shared intentions. This is contrasted with a group infusion, which arises when individuals recognize their common situations and join together in pursuit of collective goals, driven by mutual support and shared purpose. Sartre's theory implies that a true community requires more than just coexistence. It requires a collective awakening to common interests and a joint commitment to act. Existentialism suggests that the individual's realization of personal freedom is enhanced and often realized within the context of community. Through authentic relationships with others who recognize and respect each person's freedom and responsibility, individuals are able to reflect on their own choices and develop a deeper understanding of themselves. Thus, community in existentialism can be seen as a supportive network that allows its members to confront their existential freedom and develop their identities in relation to others, fostering a symbiotic relationship where the growth of the individual and the community are interlinked. However, existentialism also warns against the loss of individuality within a community. When the collective begins to impose its will on the individual, the risk emerges that one may adopt the group's values and beliefs without critical examination, leading to what Sartre terms bad faith, the denial of one's own freedom and responsibility under the guise of external necessity. Thus, the existential community must balance the need for collective action and the respect for individual autonomy in order to avoid the suppression of the individual voice. An existentialist approach to community emphasizes the need for dialogue and transparency among its members. A community thrives when there is open communication, allowing for the expression of diverse viewpoints and the negotiation of shared objectives. This communicative process is essential for maintaining the sense of individual participation and preventing the community from becoming a rigid structure that alienates its members or stifles their development. The idea of community is further complicated by the experiences of alienation and anonymity that are inherent in modern society. Despite being surrounded by others, existentialism posits that one can feel profoundly isolated due to the lack of meaningful connections. Communities can mitigate this sense of alienation, but only if they provide genuine engagement rather than simply the illusion of belonging. The therapeutic aspect of a community is realized when individuals find solidarity with others who understand and share the angsts and dilemmas that naturally accompany human existence. Furthermore, existentialism points to the role of communities in confronting the absurd. As per Albert Camus, the absurd arises from the human need to seek meaning in a world that is indifferent to our quests. Communities offer a space for individuals to confront the absurd together, creating collective narratives or engaging in joint actions that imbue their lives with a sense of purpose. Even when faced with the ultimate absurdity of mortality, communities can foster connections that transcend the individual and contribute to a legacy that outlives the finite human life. At its core, existentialism views community as a dynamic and evolving entity that reflects the ongoing contribution of its members. A community anchored in existentialist thought is not static, but is characterized by its responsiveness to change and its members' pursuit of self-realization. In such a community, the goal is not to dissolve the individual into a collective identity, but to provide a platform where individual purposes can coexist and where the development of self can occur through sincere engagement with others. The existentialist perspective of community highlights the delicate balancing act between individual autonomy and the human need for connectedness. It proposes that communities should be built around the premise of respect for the individual's search for meaning, mutual recognition of freedom and responsibility, and the contribution towards a collective project that is consistently open to reevaluation and reformulation. In this sense, an existentialist community is one where individuals come together in solidarity, not because they seek refuge from their existential freedom, but because they recognize that the shared human condition is best navigated with others who understand the weight and privilege of existence. 7.8 The role of communication. Communication in the context of existentialism is a fundamental aspect that has profound implications on relationships, both with others and with oneself. It serves as the medium through which individuals express their authentic selves and establish genuine connections. Clear and honest communication is vital for the development of meaningful relationships, reflecting existentialist values such as freedom, authenticity, and responsibility. Effective dialogue involves not only sharing one's thoughts and feelings openly, but also listening actively to others. This reciprocal nature of communication is essential for fostering understanding and intimacy between persons. The process of self-disclosure, a cornerstone of meaningful communication, allows individuals to reveal their true selves to others. By expressing personal desires, fears, beliefs, and experiences, a person embodies existential principles by owning their unique existence. This act of openness is not without vulnerability. Individuals expose themselves to potential judgment or rejection. However, it is within this vulnerability that deep connections are formed. The existentialist perspective suggests that these risks are inherent to the human condition and are necessary for authentically navigating human relationships. Active listening is another key component of communication within existential relationships. This entails truly hearing and striving to understand the other person's point of view, rather than simply waiting for one's turn to speak. By affirming the other's experiences and feelings without interjecting one's own bias, individuals demonstrate respect and validate the presence of the other. Such recognition is essential for mutual respect and is in line with the existentialist belief in the importance of individual perspectives. The value of authenticity in communication is emphasized in existential thought. Authenticity involves being truthful to oneself and others without succumbing to societal pressures or expectations. Communicating authentically does not mean being tactless or disregarding the other's feelings, but rather expressing oneself in a genuine manner. This authenticity fosters a climate of trust and respect where meaningful relationships can flourish. Being authentic also allows people to confront the natural isolation that comes from the subjective nature of existence, hence creating a bridge that diminishes existential solitude. Language itself is an existential tool that reflects an individual's internal world and shapes interactions with the external one. The words chosen, the tone used, and the nonverbal cues all contribute to the construction or deconstruction of relationships. The complexity of language can sometimes lead to misunderstandings or conflicts. Thus, individuals must strive to communicate clearly and understand language's limitations. Existentialists recognize that language, while powerful, cannot fully encapsulate the depth of human experience. Still, it remains the most accessible means to convey one's essence and intent. The concept of responsibility in existentialism extends to the realm of communication. Each person is responsible for their speech and how they interact with others. Individuals must acknowledge the impact their words and manner of expression have on their relationships. This responsibility includes managing emotional reactions, actively choosing words that construct rather than destruct, and owning up to communication mishaps when they occur. The existentialist seeks to navigate these responsibilities, acknowledging that they shape the reality of their relationships. In existential relationships, silence also holds significance and can be a powerful form of communication. Silence can represent contemplation, resistance, consent, or a myriad of other meanings based on the context. It is a space where the unsaid can be as potent as the spoken word, allowing individuals to reflect on their own and others' existence. Recognizing when to speak and when to remain silent is a skill developed through mindful communication practices, reflecting a balance between external expression and internal reflection. Life's inherently ambiguous nature is mirrored in communication. The existentialist accepts that communication can be fraught with uncertainty, and that misunderstanding is a natural consequence of human interaction. Rather than seeking absolute clarity and certainty, fostering flexibility and tolerance for ambiguity in communication can strengthen relationships. This acceptance can alleviate the anxiety of misinterpretation, allowing individuals to focus on the intent and effort to connect, rather than perfection in the delivery of their message. Communication channels, too, should be chosen wisely, as each medium has its nuances and can influence the message's reception. Face-to-face interactions allow for a full spectrum of expression, including body language and immediate feedback, thereby facilitating a richer dialogue. In contrast, written communication, while allowing more time for reflection, can lack the immediacy and emotional depth found in personal encounters. Recognizing the strengths and weaknesses of each form of communication ensures that individuals select the most appropriate method for their message. Finally, the role of communication in existential relationships extends to the communal sphere, where collective narratives and discourses shape societal structures and norms. How individuals participate in these conversations can influence the broader social context and contribute to the development of shared meanings and values. Engaging in dialogues about existential concepts such as freedom, meaning, and authenticity with others can broaden the impact of existential thought. This communal aspect of communication allows for the dissemination of existential ideas, fostering a culture that values deep, authentic relationships. In summary, communication is an essential component of existential relationships, serving as the bridge between one's internal world and the external reality of others. It embodies the principles of self-disclosure, active listening, authenticity, responsibility, and the acknowledgement of language's power and limitations. By understanding and practicing effective communication, individuals participate in creating meaningful relationships that resonate with the core values of existentialism. 7.9 Solitude and Togetherness. The concepts of solitude and togetherness occupy substantial roles in existential thought. The existential view often embraces solitude as a necessary state for personal growth, while it also acknowledges the importance of togetherness in human existence. This section seeks to explore these concepts in depth, understanding their relevancy to existential philosophy, and how they contribute to an individual's pursuit of authenticity. Solitude, in the context of existentialism, is more than mere physical aloneness. It encompasses a reflective and introspective state wherein an individual confronts their own existence. While solitude can be unsettling due to the confrontation with the self, existential thinkers propose that it is in these moments that one can encounter the most profound truths about existence. These truths include recognizing personal freedom, the responsibility of choice, and the development of a self-determined identity. Existential philosophers argue that solitude is an essential ingredient for authenticity. This is because solitude provides the necessary isolation for individuals to strip away societal expectations and external influences. Through solitude, one can engage with their core values and beliefs without interference. In this space, an individual can evaluate their life and the direction it is taking. Thus, solitude becomes the catalyst for a deeper understanding of one's authentic self. However, prolonged solitude may lead to feelings of alienation and detachment from the world. Existential thinkers recognize the possibility of falling into despair when one is perpetually isolated from others. Here lies the paradox of existential solitude. While it can be a source of deep personal insight, it can also evoke a profound sense of abandonment if the individual fails to navigate its deeper waters effectively. On the flip side, togetherness in the existential framework is the acknowledgement of the individual's embeddedness within a social context. Humans, as social beings, crave connection and community. It is through relationships with others that individuals explore different facets of their identity and experience the multiplicity of human experience. Togetherness, thereby, complements solitude as it offers a mirror through which the self can be reflected and understood. Existentialists posit that authentic relationships are those in which individuals recognize each other's freedom and individuality. These relationships allow for the mutual unfolding of authentic selves. Rather than relationships based on dependency or conformity, existential togetherness respects the separateness of each person. It encourages honest interaction that does not compromise one's essential nature. To experience the other fully, and to be fully experienced, there must be a recognition of individual sovereignty within the context of togetherness. Moreover, true togetherness from an existential point of view implies that individuals must be aware of their own solitude, even within a relationship. It is a delicate balance between being an autonomous entity and being part of a wider social fabric. This means that while relationships are essential, they should not consume an individual's sense of self, nor should they become an escape from facing the anxieties of existence alone. The dynamics of solitude and togetherness also provide an existential perspective on love and companionship. Love, in this framework, entails a profound recognition and acceptance of the other's essence. It does not seek to negate solitude, but rather to honor it. When two individuals engage in a loved dynamic understanding of each other's need for solitude, they can further enrich their union. The strength of the relationship lies in the ability to be separately together, to share a life without merging identities completely. The synthesis of solitude and togetherness often culminates in the concept of shared existential projects. These projects are endeavors that align with the authentic aspirations of each individual while being pursued collectively. Such mutual engagement emphasizes the potential of togetherness to amplify the meaning and understanding of one's existence. Shared existential projects epitomize the productive harmony that can exist between individual purpose and communal life. The examination of solitude and togetherness in the existential realm underscores the need for a balance between individual authenticity and social existence. It does not prescribe definitive rules on how to navigate between these poles, but rather emphasizes the fluid and dynamic interplay of the self with others. An understanding of existentialism demands an acknowledgement of the value of both solitude and togetherness, as each provides distinct yet intertwined pathways to personal authenticity and a meaningful life. 7.10 Empathy and existential connection. Understanding empathy within the context of existentialism requires us to consider the role of subjectivity and the individual's engagement with the other, any person or entity considered as distinct from the self. In existential terms, empathy is seen as a conscious effort to transcend one's subjective boundaries, to connect with another's experiences and emotions. It is not merely recognizing an emotion in another, but involves actively attempting to understand and share in that emotion. This process is significant as it acknowledges the separateness of individuals, while also allowing for a profound form of connection that respects each person's unique existence. Empathy as an existential concept diverges from a superficial emotional contagion. Rather than passively absorbing the emotional state of the other, existential empathy involves an intentional, thoughtful process. To empathize in such a manner, one engages in a dual process of introspection and outward focus. Introspection allows one to access one's own experiences and use this as a springboard to understand the experiences of the other. The outward focus then requires actively listening and observing, being fully present with the other to appreciate the nuances of their situation, without imposing one's own experiences onto them. For existentialists, the act of empathizing does not merge the self with the other but respects the distinction between the two entities. True empathy acknowledges the independent reality of the other's emotions and experiences. An existential empathetic connection is therefore an ethical endeavor. It is a recognition of the other's humanity and individuality. It does not seek to diminish the importance of one's own experiences, but balances self-awareness with an openness to someone else's experience. This leads to an authentic connection where both individuals can exist freely and without the need to control or define each other. Empathy has a crucial role in forging genuine human relationships from an existential standpoint. It is the process through which individuals can encounter and affirm each other's existence. Søren Kierkegaard, often regarded as the first existentialist philosopher, posited that true love for the other involves caring for their freedom as one would care for one's own. Here, empathy is not merely feeling with someone, but also involves a deep concern for their ability to choose and to be. This implies that to love authentically in an existential sense, one must empathize by recognizing the other's potentialities and supporting their endeavors to realize them. Empathy in existential relationships also challenges the notions of hierarchy and power. By valuing the other's perspective, existential empathy works against objectification and exploitation. It demands that we approach relationships not as means to an end but as ends in themselves. Jean-Paul Sartre, whose writings heavily influence existential philosophy, points out the tendency of individuals to objectify others. In empathic relationships, this tendency is counteracted by the mutual acknowledgement of each individual's consciousness and their capacity for self-determination. Moreover, empathy facilitates deeper self-understanding within an existential framework. By engaging with the other and striving to understand their unique position in the world, one is often led to reflect on one's own existence and the commonalities and differences that define human experience. Martin Buber's concept of the I-thou relationship elucidates this point, suggesting that true dialogue with the other, which is based on empathy, can lead to greater comprehension of oneself. This process not only benefits interpersonal relationships, but also enriches the individual's grasp of the human condition. Existential empathy also bears a transformative potential. In aligning oneself with the other's struggles, joys, and sorrows, one can experience a shift in one's own perspective. This is because existentialism posits that individuals are shaped by their experiences. Empathy, therefore, has the power to prompt personal growth and to catalyze change in one's own existential journey. It is an active engagement rather than a passive encounter, requiring an openness to be influenced and altered by the relationship with the other. Empathy's role in alleviating existential isolation is another vital consideration. Existential philosophers like Albert Camus explored the concept of the absurd, that is, the search for meaning in a seemingly indifferent or meaningless universe. In this search, individuals can experience profound solitude. Empathy offers a bridge across this isolation, providing a sense of solidarity and shared humanity. It emphasizes that, while each person's existential journey is unique, there is common ground to be found in the spectrum of human emotions and experiences. This sense of solidarity can be particularly important when exploring the more distressing aspects of the human experience, such as anguish, despair, and the contemplation of mortality. Existential therapy, influenced by the principles of existential philosophy, utilizes empathy to help individuals face these aspects of existence. The therapeutic relationship aims to create a space where the client feels understood in their confrontation with the existential givens. The therapist's empathetic engagement is key in fostering a connection that validates the client's experiences. Empathy, within an existential framework, is a multifaceted and intentional endeavor that forms a cornerstone of authentic human relationships. It respects the separateness and the subjectivity of the self and the other, while simultaneously creating a space for connection and mutual recognition. Existential empathy is an active engagement that enhances self-awareness, challenges power dynamics, prompts personal transformation, and offers solace against existential isolation. By fostering authentic connections through empathy, individuals can affirm each other's freedom and navigate the complexities of the human condition with a greater sense of solidarity.